So I watched some of these Braxton 100 back and forth with the atheists, and this is turning into one of the best shows in town. Really, seems to be. I may do more than one video on these because there's a whole series now at this point, and he's stirring them up. Steer it up, Braxton Hunter, steer it up. He's stirring up the pot. He's got them all. I swear, he's got a lot of them in a tizzy. He's got them all lathered up and ready for battle. I'm not exactly sure why. But I guess in some ways he's putting his he must be nailing it somehow. So that's why, because of all the commotion around some of these videos that seem relatively straightforward and benign. So I'd probably do more than one of them. I don't know. We'll see how it all pans out. But so the first one I started with is, I'm pretty sure this is at the beginning, with the 10 questions. And the first question is, we have the world as it is, and what better accounts for it? Atheism or Christianity? Now, what was interesting about this one, I saw the responses to this one, and for the most part, they studiously avoided understanding and answering the question properly, which I found very telling. And that's why I might do a lot of these videos, because I'm like, maybe he's stirring them up maybe there's a reason he's stirring them up. Maybe he's getting at something really important, and that's why they're getting defensive. I'm not getting defensive, Craig. You're the one being defensive. Yeah, it seems to be like you're a little defensive. I'm not being defensive, Craig. I think you're the one being defensive. Well, coming crazy, but you seem a little defensive. I'm not sure if that's what's going on. It seems to me like he's nailing something essential because that's where the commotion's coming from, but I could be wrong. But the first one is a question, and it's a pretty easy to understand question. So the fact that they did seem to be studiously misunderstood by everybody except the Crusade Against Ignorance crew, those are the smart set. those are the smart atheists. Everybody else, there's some of the smart atheists and the others, but they studiously misunderstood the problem. Starting with what he was trying to say, okay, and I actually got in debates in some of his videos on his channel with people, and it's like I was debating people from another planet, because sometimes they process this so poorly that you don't even know what they're talking about, what they think they mean. Okay, so a lot of times I get in debates with people, and I'm like, okay, I don't want to come right out and say, I have no idea what you think you mean by what you just said, but a lot of times I have to, because when people are trying to sound smart, wow, can they sometimes just be dumb and incoherent? Just makes no sense, some of the conversations I've gotten into over this. So it's pretty straightforward. We have the world as it actually occurs. There are facts about the real material world that we all inhabit. And there are certain of these facts, we don't agree on all of them, Christians versus atheists, with some of them we're going to disagree, but there are certain of these facts about the world we all inhabit that, we would mostly agree on. Let's look at those and say, what is a better way to account for it? Christianity, theism, or atheism? Now, in other words, because people really struggle with it framed like that. In other words, guys, wasn't that complicated to understand, so why are you all bent over backwards to misinterpret? I don't know. But you should look at that. Well, because it's very telling. It's not that complicated to understand, and if you ask those questions wisely and intelligently, you might get answers that might surprise you. That's why I think part of this stirring up. That first question in particular, I think, is really strong and really potentially very good. That's why I think it was stirring people up, but I could be wrong. But that's what my spidey sense tells me, and that's why people were studiously trying to avoid the question as framed. So we got two propositions in play. God exists. We have the world as it actually occurs. So we have, here's a phenomenon, the world as it actually occurs. If God exists, how do we explain this? And then we go, is that a good answer? Then we go, here's a phenomenon in the world as it actually occurs. If God exists, or if God does not exist, how do we account for this? Is that a good answer? Which is the better answer? Now, far be it from me to clearly understand why you would fall all over yourself to not hear that clearly, because if you really size that up and you think through, there's really only one strong one in support of naturalism or atheism. I'll get to that. I might not get to that in this video. And of course it was the Crusade Against Ignorance guys who brought it up. So there's really only one. There's really only one fact about the world that we presently inhabit that's really hard to account, or not really hard, but I can understand why it would throw a non-believer and how they think it's a really good argument against the reality of God. Because it's, at first glance, it seems relatively convincing. The rest of them, you know, that's why you were trying to not hear them clearly, because they do support theism. That's the God's honest truth. Go look. I brought this up before in the past. There are not a lot of arguments out there against the existence of God. Very rare. And by very rare, I mean, I can't think of anybody other than one guy who did, I don't even remember who it was, Crocoduck. It's the only person I ever saw try to rationally justify the proposition God does not exist, and try to, in other words, try to make a logical argument for God does not exist, against the existence of God. The rest of the arguments are not those. They are counter-apologetics, usually only debating one certain iteration of Christianity. That's it. It's mostly what they do. Well, this particular Christian God model can't be right. Why? Because X, Y, Z, PDQ. You know, usually the Old Testament. Yeah, usually the Old Testament. Because the Old Testament's God, so terrible. Yeah. Blah, blah, blah. It's killing babies again, Greg. It's killing babies, so it does. Commands genocide, kill babies. I understand. Deep breaths. We'll talk about it. Now, the one that Braxton brought up in his video is a really interesting question. And if you're an atheist, you should just think. It should just cause you to think. There are millions of claims of miracles and religious experiences all over the world. How do we account for them if God does not exist? How do we account for them if God does exist? Now that question was people studiously tried to not address properly. So beginning with godless engineer. Now Braxton calls it the one, what does he call it? The 1-star review. If someone says, I call it atheist triumphalism. Anytime, Christians, anytime you hear atheist triumphalism, you know, dinner is served. Let the dinner bell ring. You got that guy on some level. Why? Because there's no reason anybody who's really confident in their position does that. They've got a lot of answers like that, and a lot of answers in the comments like that. Atheist triumphalism. The question is ridiculous because theism and Christianity can't account for anything. It's such fantasies, and your sky fairy is so ludicrous. That's atheist triumphalism. Obviously, Christianity can't account for anything. You're not thinking about the question. Why? Because you don't want to. But the triumphalism is very telling, and it's not, I'm so confident in my position. That's what you want us to think, sure. But that's not what I'm going to think when you start putting in my face how confident you are in your position. Why? Because that's not what confidence sounds like. Guys, hate to burst your bubble. It's not. It's not even close. Real confidence doesn't announce itself. Doesn't announce how powerful and intelligent it is and how easily it's going to defeat my opponent. It doesn't do that, ever. Why? It doesn't have to. When people do that, that's called in the real world, in psychological terms, a tell. It's very telling, and the tell isn't, wow, that guy must really know his stuff. I better not mess with that guy. It's like, come on, give me a break. You haven't thought about this at all, have you? No, I really haven't. That's why I'm running off at the mouth. No, I really haven't. That's why I'm running off at the mouth. Now, with godless engineer, he's thought about it, but so the question in the first question, I swear to God, that's a real thing of life, guys. I swear to God, that's true. That's a real paradigm of reality. It's human psychology 101. Next time you're at a party in a bar, I haven't gone to one in years, but if you're ever at a party or a bar, or God forbid a frat party or something like that, look at the loudmouth galoot, the guy who's like, oh, nobody better mess with me. I'm the roughest, baddest guy in town. Should you mess with that guy? You might want to. Why? Because there's a really good chance that guy can't fight at all. Sometimes, accidentally, that guy can be relatively tough, but normally speaking, in the normal line of, normal human psychology 101, no. That guy is full of garbage. That's why he's doing that. Why? He's not trying to convince you he's tough. He's trying to convince himself he's tough. And that's the same thing with atheist triumphalism. If they're mouthing off about how they're nailing you to the wall in your comment section, you got them. Just know that. Why? Because there's no reason that anybody confident about their position would ever do that. They're not trying to convince you they're right. They're trying to convince themselves about how much of a slam dunk this is for them and how easy this is for them. It's why people do that. There's no other reason to do that in the world. It's really easy to see when it comes to toughness. Why? Because a true tough guy never does that at all. Never. never, ever, ever announces how tough they are. Never, ever, ever puffs himself up. You know, you better recognize I'm the biggest, baddest guy in town. Why? Because they don't have to. They consider it beneath themselves. If you don't recognize they're the biggest, baddest guy in town, they'll literally kill you. They'll literally kill you. They won't care. They consider it beneath them. I've met some of the toughest people, most terrifying people on the face of this earth, and they would never do that. They don't even raise their voice. They don't have to. I swear to God, they don't. They don't. It's just a matter of fact. If you don't recognize a matter of fact, I will kill you. That's how they are. They don't go, oh, I'm the bro. You better not mess with me. I swear to God, I'm going to kill him, Joey. He doesn't know you don't know who you're messing with. Oh, Zeppelin. That guy usually doesn't know what he's doing. That's why he's doing that. Trying to puff himself up, to give himself courage, to convince himself that he's strong and tough. That's why he's doing it. And when you see atheist triumphalism like that, know that they got nothing. They are firing blanks. Pester them a little, poke at them a little, prod them a little. Why? There's a good chance they're the ones that are going to flip. Swear to God. Swear to God there is. Why? Because nobody who is confident in their position, nobody who has studied their position and really thought about it ever does that in a million years. Why? Because you don't have to. Hello, you don't have to. Does Grandma Uppy do that ever? No. Okay, rest my case. Rest my case. There are some intelligent first-rate intellects in the atheist community. Do they do that ever? No. Dr. Alex Malpass? No, he doesn't. If he did, people would be a little bit embarrassed by him, wouldn't they? Does it say people are so afraid to debate me? No. Well, some people probably are afraid to debate him if they're paying attention. Why? Because he's really smart. He's really intelligent. He'd probably kill you in the debate. Unless you know what you're doing, you shouldn't debate him. But I don't think he's ever in a million years said, well, look at all these people afraid to debate me. Why? Because there are probably actually people who are afraid to debate him because they're paying attention and should be afraid to debate him. Why? Because he knows what he's talking about and he's really intelligent. And if you don't know your stuff, you'll look like an idiot. Hello? That's why. That's also why he doesn't announce himself. Doesn't announce how triumphant he is in his position. Why? He doesn't have to. So Braxton calls it the one-star review. I call it, come on. You're not fooling us. I call it, you're not fooling us. You may be fooling yourself. Pay attention to the actual question as framed, and you might not fool yourself for very much longer. Why? Because it's a really good question. How do we account for the fact that there are miracles and religious experiences all across the world, millions upon millions of them all over the globe? Easy, Craig, that's all delusion. Okay, is that a good answer, though? That's really, there's only one or two answers for an atheist. There's really only one or two answers. We're all deluded. You know, we all want to believe in our sky daddy because we're afraid to die, I guess. You know. And then there's the new scientific answer that the quasi-smart set have latched onto. We're pattern recognition machines, and theists are very good at discerning patterns. Okay, just because people discern patterns doesn't mean they aren't there. Hello? Hello, the reason why we're good at discerning patterns is because they teach us, you know, we say, hey, those little tracks there probably lead to an animal I can cook and eat. No, that's just pattern recognition machine, man. Yeah, usually you notice patterns because they are part and parcel of the actual world. So noticing patterns doesn't mean those patterns aren't there. It's not a good argument against theism. It could be a good argument, you know, really, it's really not. Why? Because it doesn't prove that we aren't noticing patterns that might be perceivably there. It's one of, I won't go into it now, but it's one of my arguments for theism. That I'm perceiving something that you cannot or will not perceive. Oh, that's just because you're really good at perceiving. Yeah, thank you. That's exactly my point. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, learn of me. Learn from me, because I am good at perceiving, and if I taught you, you'd be able to perceive it too. That just means, you see, then never mind. Never mind. Sidetracking. Oh, let me see. I'm running out of time. I'm having fun, though. I know. Got to get to the point. Craig. I'm having fun. 14 minutes. Everyone calm down. So, where was I? So, Braxty Poo has made this video. Yeah, Braxty Poo. I like it. Works for me. Braxty, that's, you know, Shannon's affectionate nickname for her ideological opponent. It works for me. How Godless Engineer conveniently not addresses the issue is he finds a miracle, a really, really implausible one. Not the most implausible one ever, but, you know, for example, here's this, like, ridiculous Eye of the Fatima miracle where I guess toilet water was running down a statue. I don't know either. But yeah, there are thousands and millions of implausible miracles. That doesn't negate the plausible ones. That's like Atheism 101. It's one of the things they always say to you. You know, there's Jesus as we speak, guys, Jesus appearing in a burrito in Mexico. I know that. I understand that. And no, I don't believe that Jesus is actually appearing in that burrito in Mexico. That does not mean now or ever that I do not believe my own religious experiences. Hello. That's what atheists always play hide the ball with that. The fact that you always want to play hide the ball is also very telling. Let me tell you about ridiculous and implausible miracles. No. Why don't you look at the credible and intelligent ones? There are incredible and real ones. One that will give you pause. One that will challenge your presupposition that they do not in fact occur. And you can find those really easily. You don't have to go searching far and wide. Most of you live within 100 miles of probably 10 or 20 churches. 2 of those 10 or 20 churches you could go to tomorrow and hear 50 miracles from the real world that people actually believe. 50 religious experiences from the real world. And you could hear them from their own voice. And 2 or 3 of those would be hard to shake off. Promise. Not all of them. 2 or 3 of them. Not all of them. I didn't say they'd all be. Well, did Jesus appearing in a burrito in Mexico, Craig, and you don't believe that guy? No, I don't necessarily believe that guy. But that doesn't believe I don't believe the reality of my own lived experiences. Not now, not ever. My experiences are 100% real to me. I've said that before in the past. 100% real to me. Not 50% real to me. Not I kind of sort of think it's God. I'm 100%. They're 100% real to me. Take that as you will. I'm not in doubt about them at all. Well, you should be, Craig. Why? Because there's a Muslim somewhere and you don't believe him. That doesn't mean I don't believe myself. That's the pretzel logic behind that statement. And if you're actually asking if miracles in fact occur, if miracles in religious experience really actually happen in the real material world, you have to deal with millions, not a few dozen that are all, wildly implausible. That's what this engineer does. He brings up a wildly implausible one. Then he asserts, that they've all been pretty much debunked. No, they haven't. And if you think they have, you haven't really looked. I can give you one from my own life. That's true. I'm not saying it's proof positive that God exists or God is sovereign. But when I became a Christian within 8 months, okay, and this is the real facts of my real life. I stopped smoking, stopped drinking, stopped doing drugs for the most part. For the most part. I don't want to talk about it. What do you mean for the most part? Well, blew a couple of weeds here and there. Still had a couple of spleefs here and there. Don't really want to talk about it. But for the most part, stop smoking, stop drinking, stop doing drugs within 8 months. Now, that's not hallelujah, Jesus is risen, and that I'm not expecting you to go, hallelujah, Craig. If you do, fine, give me the tithes. Oh, awesome, I'll take them, give me the tithes. Yeah, cut to chase. But that's a true fact about my actual life. Now, that's a really common claim. That's not a wildly outlandish claim that you've got to search far and wide. And it's not to be compared to when Joseph Smith had all these visions of unicorns. I didn't say anything wildly outlandish, did I? I told you the God's honest truth of my actual lived life. Is that a miracle? Maybe not. I could account for it in the natural. I could, and probably so could you. But you're already trying to account for it. You're trying to account for it in a way other than theism. And what Braxton is asking you to do is, what's a better explanation? Because I am not alone in those plausible miracles. I'm telling you the truth. God's honest truth. My brother-in-law came out to California. My brother-in-law and my sister, they became Christians on the spot. Why? Because the transformation in me was so stark. I went from, I don't even know what I was. Pretty much the same person, basically. But as you can imagine from my personality now, I was pretty wild. I was pretty out there. I was pretty much by the time I became a Christian, I wasn't totally messed up in drugs and alcohol, but I was still a functional alcoholic. And I easily stopped doing all that stuff and transformed pretty quickly within 8 months. A real transformation, the real world. And that is at least somewhat miraculous or demonstrates some type of power available to the practicing Christian. If you're not actually willing to believe that's the power of the living God, fine. I accept that. You're a skeptic. But that shows some form of transformational power that really happened in my life that needs to be accounted for. And if it's not, hallelujah, God is sovereign, then it needs to be accounted for in the benefits I achieve from Christianity by the spiritual experiences and how much it turned me into, how much it helped me to become more peaceful, more whatever. If you're not going to give that as an actual miracle, you still need to account for it. And I am not alone. Those type of testimonial transformations are number in the thousands and the millions. And how you sidestep is you go, well, there are Hindus out there who had them and you don't believe them. Well, I've had Hindus on my channel. And there's a lot that we agree on. And you don't investigate the Hindu claims either. So why are you bringing them up? And it's irrelevant. It's relevant. Jesus appearing in a burrito somewhere as we speak, and no, I don't think Jesus is actually appearing in that burrito. I know for a fact that when I became a Christian, it was really easy for me to do things that I had struggled to do for years, which is one of which is quit smoking. I didn't think I'd ever be able to quit smoking. Became a Christian, someone laid hands on me, I stopped smoking immediately. Never thought about it again. Now, I was ready to quit. I honestly hated smoking by that time. And I was honestly ready to do a lot of things. I was really at the point in my life where I was pretty much done with drinking too. You know, drinking can be fun, but it can also, it wasn't fun the way I did it, let's put it that way. The hangovers themselves were like from hell. They were totally awful and they last for 8-10 hours. So it wasn't fun the way I did it. Once upon a time, I guess it was when I was in high school, but it hadn't been fun for years. It had been a chore. So I give you, it's not necessarily a slam dunk, you know, that God sovereignly introduced himself in my life and hallelujah. But that's something that actually happens a lot. Those are real testimonies of the real world. They're easy to find. They're easy to understand. And most of you know for a fact that the person is in some way telling you the truth. Even the David Wood one. All of you have heard that one, right? He used to be a psychopath and now he's, you know, a mellower version of himself. You believe him? Okay, that needs to be accounted for to some degree. That needs to be accounted for to some degree. If we live in a world where there is no God whatsoever, how do we account for that? You can try to account for that given just the reality of the material world and, you know, psychology of religion and things like that. And the psychological utility of religious experiences and the psychological utility of religion. But to find a drug, if it is just a drug, and I'm just talking to the atheists right now and the secular people, if it is just a drug that powerful and that radically transformational, that there are millions upon millions of testimonies of how it really helped them, you know, that drug is worth checking into from strictly empirical basis. It is worth discovering what exactly makes that drug tick. If you aren't willing to think that it's some sort of transcendent other, some sort of power of the living God, it's still something that demands an explanation. Why? Because the testimony that I'm talking about is real, really happened in my life, and I am not alone. I am not even close. And they are not hard to find, those type of miracle testimonies. There are millions of them. You can find 50 people in the church, a church near you, and they'd be hard to shake off. Some would be easy to shake off. You know, yeah, I was praying and then I came home and I saw Jesus' face in my burrito. And I bought this burrito and I came home and, oh my God, Jesus is looking right at me. Oh, Jesus, help me. Okay, so some would be easy to shake off. Some would be literally almost impossible to shake off. And that's what you should be challenging yourself if you really want to find out if there's any truth in Christianity whatsoever. Not if it's all true. Not all of the ontology is true and all the crackpot things that a lot of Christians believe are true, but is there any truth in it at all? There certainly is a transformational power that seems to be readily available to the practicing religious person. Not every Christian, not every person can access that power, not all know how to. And not all of them have experienced that power, but that seems to be a reality, part and parcel of the religious experience. That's the point. That's the point of Braxton's question. The question is just to get you to think. Why is that? Why is that? If it's just this absurd delusion, why does it seem to actually have provable fact, that type of transformational power, at least in some people's lives? How do we account for that? That's all he's trying to do, get you to think. That's why it's good. And that's why I think he stirred the pot so much. Now, I'm running out of time. Yeah. I don't know, I'm having fun ranting. Ranting and raving is what I do, 25 minutes. I don't really want to go past 30 minutes. So I'll wrap this up. But I think I'm going to do, depending on the response to this video, I think I will do a bunch of the Braxty Poo videos. This particular series, because there's good stuff in there. Now, do I want to mention this particular line of inquiry, where you say this is the world as it actually occurs, and these are the facts of the world that we all inhabit, and these we agree are facts, and what is a better way to account for them? God exists. How do we explain this fact? God exists. How do we explain miraculous? How do we explain miracles? And how do we explain religious experience? Easily, God exists. And there are some people, they are saints and artists and prophets who are better at hearing from and perceiving and interacting, that are better at religious experiences. It's something I talk about a lot, guys. Religious experiences, there's talent involved. There's methodology involved. They aren't something that just happens to people and people automatically know how to do. They require your conscious cultivation. And not only have they happened for centuries, for thousands of years all over the world, transcultural, but some of the most creative and intelligent people in the history of the world have reported them, and they have drawn inspiration directly from them. If that's a delusion, hook me up. If that's just a drug, let me try that action. Let me get a piece of that action and try it for myself. That's what I would be saying if I were an agnostic. Just look at Tolstoy alone. That's only one example. And that's a real example. You can go look at the history of his life. He reported many, many religious experiences towards the end of his life. He called himself a Christian mystic of some type. And some of those experiences were instrumental in his creative output. Keep in mind, this is considered one of the 2 best Russian authors of all time. Many people would put him on the short list of the top 10 authors of all time. And the other great Russian author, Dostoevsky, was also a Christian, also reported religious experiences. I don't quite remember if he reported them as instrumental in his creative output. But Tolstoy did. Tolstoy did. How do you account for that as God doesn't exist? He's a crackpot. He's a crackpot like Ken Ham. Okay, maybe. But is that a good way to account? He's a deluded crackpot just like Ken Ham, Craig. Okay, maybe. But is that a good answer is what Braxton's asking you. Is that really a good answer? Is that all that plausible? Does that hold all that vaunted explanatory power? Does it? Does it really? Uh-huh. Really? You sure? You sure? Really think about it. Because I just told you the God's honest truth. You can go look that up. And Leo Tolstoy is not alone. Some of the most creative people in the history of the world report religious experiences, and they report those religious experiences as being instrumental in their creative output, giving them insights into the transcendent, into another realm. Many is the artist. Part of the reason why I started leaning Christian prior to me becoming a Christian, because I knew a lot of these stories. And they spoke to me. You know, many are the artists who talk about as if they are being used by something other than themselves, that the work just poured through them, and if it was as if it was being written from on high, as if they were just taking dictation. That's a common claim of the most creative people of all time. Very common. It's not an extraordinary claim requiring extraordinary evidence. Common claim. My religious experiences are instrumental in my creative output. And there are many times where I felt like the text, like the poem, like the play, like the screenplay was being written for me, was not being. I was just taking notes. That's a common claim, not an extraordinary claim requiring extraordinary evidence. A common claim about the creative process. Common, average claim. You look up 50 of the most creative people, you'll see that claim 10 times. I saw that claim a lot prior to me becoming a Christian. What's a good way to account for that? Delusions, Craig, they're crazy people. Okay, maybe. But it's not all that good of an explanation. That's the point. That's the point that Braxton's trying to make. It's not all that good of an explanation. So, there you have it, kids. Yeah, that is all for now. You know, I'll probably do more of his, of Braxty Poo's videos. It's good. He's really stirred up a lot. I mean, the people are responding, so that tells you he's getting something essentially right. So I definitely watch them, and I comment on this in his comment section, and we'll continue to watch them, and I will probably try to address them again in my videos. So there you have it, kids. That's all for now. Good work, Braxton. The mass is ended. Go in peace. Amen.